Hello students, welcome to the answer writing program. So today we will be discussing 3 questions from modern history, that is the topic from GS1. Let's see the topics. The first topic is related to the fall of Mughal Empire, the advent of Europeans, various battles, treaties, etc., the spread of British in India, then the economic impact of the British rule. So let's take an overview of all the 3 questions. The first question is related to the Jagirdari crisis. The second question is related to the French governor in India, the duplex. The third question is related to the Paika rebellion. Let's start with the very first question. The late 17th century Mughal India is considered to be the period of Jagirdari crisis. We need to discuss this. Means we need to write the multiple dimensions that how this Jagirdari crisis was happened. So, for this you must understand what is Jagirdari crisis and the Jagirdari crisis, this theory of the Jagirdari crisis and how this Jagirdari crisis has led to the fall of the Mughal Empire was opined by our historian Satish Chandra. So, you can start with this introduction also that this Jagirdari crisis is a theory was introduced by the Satish Chandra. So let's understand what is Jagirdari crisis. For that you must understand what is Mansabdari also and how Mansabdars and the Jagirdari system played the role in this particular thing. Okay. So the Mughal Empire, under the Mughal Empire there was a nobility class, we all know. The nobility class consisted of the civil bureaucrats and the military commanders. And this nobility class, or you can say the ruling class, this ruling class was held the rank of the mansabs. It means this ruling class held the title of the mansab. It means these mansabs were paid the salary under this Mughal Empire in the form of cash or in the form of the land revenue assignment. When the salary is paid in the form of the land revenue assignment, it is known as Jagirdar. Okay, so now the king, or you can say the Mughal Empire or the Mughal king, gives the piece of land to these officials, so that these officials collect the revenue, or you can say the taxes out of this particular piece of land. But you must understand that these officials do not own this land. They only have the authority or the power to collect the revenue or the taxes out of this particular land. This land is still held by zamindars. Okay. So this is the whole particular system. Now, we must understand that on the top there is an imperial king, or you can say the Mughal Empire. On below of that you can say that there are the mansabs. The mansabs, when they are paid the salary in the form of land revenue assignment, they are known as the Jagirdars. So, the Jagirdars collects the land revenue or the taxes out of that particular land from the zamindars. But zamindars were not the ones who do the cultivation on the piece of land. So they collect the revenue from the peasants who were working on their piece of land. So for maximizing the collection of the taxes, or you can say the revenue, Jagirdars exploit the zamindars, and zamindars in turn exploits the peasants for the maximization of revenue collection. Okay, and there were the scenarios of the corruptions, operations were there, like the zamindars collect revenue, or you can say the tax. Like let's take an example that he was collecting 200 rupees from the peasant, but on papers he was showing that he has collected only 150 rupees. So he is giving only 150 rupees to the Jagirdar. So first thing, there were the less revenue collection on the side of Jagirdar, but the zamindar is exploiting the peasants. So peasants do not have any incentive to increase the agricultural productivity. So it resulted into the agrarian crisis also. the oppression, the increases chances of the corruptions by the zamindars on the peasants, they resulted into the agrarian crisis. So this also, along with the Jagirdari crisis, was the reason in the fall of Mughal Empire. So first thing, we have seen this, that the Mansabdars were assigned the Jagirs in their name for the taxes collection. And there were the Jagirdari crisis. It means the Jagirdars were exploiting the zamindars and in turn the peasants for the maximization of their revenue. First thing. Next thing is about that we have discussed that the Mansabs were assigned the Jagirs. Okay. With time, when the Akbar reign was ended and then later on the Aurangzeb reign was started, the Aurangzeb annexed the new pieces of land for the new territories like Ahmednagar, Bijapur and Golconda. It means they have annexed, occupied these new territories. So the rulers in these new territories, they have to be now inducted in the nobility class of the Mughal Empire. They cannot, Mughal Empire just cannot leave these new rulers like out of nowhere, so that they do not again attack. It means the Mughal Empire has to induct these new leaders or the rulers in their nobility class. And when any new ruling class is developed, it means the salary is giving, now the Mughal Empire is giving the salary in the form of the new land revenue assignment system. It means when the new annexations are there, when the new land expansion or the Mughal Empire extent is increasing, new mansabs were there. It means the mansabs are increasing. Now they will demand new increasing jagirs, but we have the absolute or the constant jagirs only. The land is not increasing at that rate. The mansabs are increasing also with the new annexations. So the demand by the mansabs for the new land collection, new land revenue collection was increasing, but we did not have that particular jagirs to give to that particular mansabs. So this resulted into the Jagirdari crisis, that the mansabs were increasing at the faster rate and they were demanding the new jagirs and they were demanding the jagirs, and we did not have that. So the competition among the mansabs to show their mightiness and to have the gain prominence over the jagirs, so this resulted into the Jagirdari crisis. Okay, this thing was there. And also you must understand two more concept with related to the mansabdars, that these mansabs, because they were the the nobility class, the ruling class, so they were required to maintain the contingent of the horses and the equipments. This was known as savars. And these mansabs, according to their pay, their salary and their hierarchical nature, they were hold the rank of Zat. Okay, so this thing you must understand. Now let's discuss our main body part. The very first thing is the Jagirdari crisis is related to the administrative issues, that there was the lack of lucrative jagirs during the Aurangzeb decisions to reserve them for his campaign. For this, again, you must understand that this Mughal Empire, the land under the Mughal Empire was more majorly categorized into the two systems. The one was Khalisa and the second one was Jagirs. Now, we have seen that what are the jagirs? The jagirs were the in the very simple language, that they were the lands given to the mansabs to collect the revenue. It means the Mughal Empire was earning from these lands. And the second category was the Khalisa. This Khalisa was directly under the leadership or under the ownership of the Mughal Empire. It means from this particular piece of land, no one was generating the revenue or the profits. Khalisa. Okay. Then during the reign of Aurangzeb, when the Aurangzeb was doing the new annexations to the new land, he was putting the creamy piece of the land under the Khalisa, not under the Jagir, so that new mansabdars and the new Jagirdars can collect the revenue out of that new productive land. So what was the mistake? That newly productive land was put under the Khalisa. From that, no one was generating the revenue or the taxes. So there was the paucity of the productive land under the Jagirs so that they can collect the new revenue. So this was also the issue, that the lack of the lucrative Jagirs were less due to the Aurangzeb decision to reserve them to show his mightiness, to show into his campaigns that see, we have the productive land under the Khalisas. Next is about a reduced military might. As we have discussed that each Mansabdar has to maintain the contingent of the horses and the equipments which were named as Sawars. So again, there was a decline in the military capabilities of the Jagirdars due to the decreased number of Sawars. The next is about the Jama Hasil discrepancy, again due to the corruption and the oppression, and the zamindars were collecting more and more money from the peasants but not giving to the Jagirdars. So there were the discrepancies between the estimated and the actual income. Next is about the rising number of the Jagirdars due to the newly annexations also, and due to the increasing nobility class, the ruling class. Next is about the lack of the sufficient Jagirs, then corruption and mismanagement, then eroded polity. The competition among the Jagirdars to gain more and more Jagirs under them, so this led to the political structure erosion. Okay. Next is about the conclusion. In conclusion, you can write about the summary that this Jagirdari crisis was the characteristics for the major fall of the Mughal Empire. The Jagirdari crisis, characterized by the administrative, military and economic challenges, was a significant factor in the decline of the Mughal Empire. Okay, so let's take in view of this model answer, the starting with the background of the Jagirdari system, then the Jagirdari crisis in the late 17th century, then finally conclusion. Okay, so let's move on to the second question. The Britishers mastered the art of the political control via intervening in the India's ruler dispute, but it was the Dupleix who showed the way. Elucidate. It means we need to provide this context in the more lucid manner or into the more clearer manner. So how we can do that? We can give by the data, facts, examples to substantiate that yes, this was true. Okay, so in introduction, what we can write? The context is saying that this intervention in the domestic issues by the Britishers, it was started by the French Governor General in India of the French possessions in India, Dupleix. So Dupleix started the intervention in the domestic politics, and later on this advantage was carried forward by the Britishers in the conquest in the later times. So you can start with this introduction that the British intention, and for that particular matter, the French and the Britishers came to India majorly for the trading, but with time they were involved or intervened in the domestic politics in India. So the events like the Carnatic War, the Bengal Wars, Battle of Plassey, Battle of Buxar, etc. gave them the tactical advantage. Tactical advantage of what? Of intervening in the domestic policies to occupy the Indian territories. So in the intervening in the India's ruler disputes. So this way you can start the introduction. Now let's move on to the body part, that we need to write down the tactics of the Marcus Dupleix, how his tactics paved the way for the later Europeans. So the very first thing is about the master of diplomacy. Dupleix was a master of diplomacy, as we have witnessed in the first two Carnatic Wars, that how he has tackled the situation, how he has used his diplomatic skills to intervene in the domestic policies, how he has choose the oppositions to defeat the Indian rulers, and how this has paved the way for the later Europeans, because they have seen this tactics of Dupleix, and they have also exploited these tactics in the later stage to defeat the Indian rulers. Okay, and second one is about the Dupleix. He has used the local leaders, local situations. Like the Dupleix used the Nawab of Carnatics to disallow the English from waging wars in their territories, so that the British possessions was to be protected. But later on, he only attacked the Indian rulers, and they have also defeated at the Battle of Saint Thom. Like for instance, in the return of the corporation, the Nawab was promised Madras after the English were defeated. But Dupleix, using his diplomacy, did not give Madras to the Nawab and even defeated him at the Saint Thome in 1746. So you are giving this substantiation that how this was true. Okay. Next is about he has mastered that how he can intervene in the internal matters of the Indian rulers. That Dupleix was the first European to intervene or to interfere in the internal politics of Indian ruler. For instance, that he supported Muzaffar Jung for Hyderabad and Chanda Sahib for the Carnatic, and his candidates emerged successful, and in return he asked for the greater concessions from the Indian rulers. Next is about he was the originator of the subsidiary alliance. Although the well-planned subsidiary alliance was carried by the Lord Wellesley in the British Raj, but still the originator of the subsidiary alliance was Dupleix. So Dupleix was the originator of this practice. For example, he placed the French army at Hyderabad at the expense of the Subedar of Hyderabad. Now let's understand what was the policy of subsidiary alliance. That India, we have already discussed it, that in India this policy of the subsidiary alliance was planned by Lord Wellesley, but this term was introduced by the French governor Dupleix. So what was this subsidiary alliance policy was? The first thing is about the British force. So this subsidiary alliance policy compelled the Indian state, the Indian rulers, to accept that the military force would be stationed in their territories, and one man or the one official from the British ruler or the British resident would be stationed in their court. Then the third one is related to that once any ruler has signed the subsidiary alliance with the Britishers, that no other European contact he can do without their permission. Next is about in all these terms or in all these, when the Indian ruler will be okay with all these conditions, in return the British would defend the ruler from the enemies and adopt the policy of non-interference in their personal matters or in their domestic matters. So this was the policy of the subsidiary alliance. Okay. So next, move on to the next part, that how the Britishers exploited this Dupleix way and carry forward this intervention issues or the intervention theories in India. Then the Britishers, they successfully used the interference policy. How they have used in the subsequent politary campaigns like the Battle of Buxar, or countering the French in the next Carnatic Wars by supporting the opposite candidates. So this way you are substantiating that although this was started by Dupleix, but later on Britishers used this theory. Next is about the policy of the subsidiary alliance. We have discussed that it was introduced by the Lord Wellesley and it supported one Indian ruler against the another. You can also write that how Britishers have signed the subsidiary alliance with Hyderabad, Mysore, Tanjore and Awadh. Next is about how the Britishers repetitively use this subsidiary alliance. And with the repetitive usage of the subsidiary alliance, the Britishers has brought the immense territories or the immense Indian rulers amongst under their control by extending the areas under the British control. Okay, so you can write this way. Moving on to the conclusion, you can write about some result that this subsidiary alliance made the Indian ruler dependent on British, who used them as the pawns. The British became the masters of the Indian subcontinent, shaping its destiny as per their interests. So this you can write in the conclusion. Let's take an view of the model answers, starting with some background that how the Plassey and Buxar, how the Dupleix used these tactics and how the Britishers used these Dupleix tactics in the later stages. Then writing about the tactics of the Marcus Dupleix, then military, then policy of the subsidiary alliance, and finally the conclusion. Moving on to the third question, the Piker Rebellion led to the beginning of popular uprisings against the British in India. Do you agree? We need to justify this and also state the timeline and outcome of this rebellion. Okay, so in the introduction, you can write about the time duration when this Piker Rebellion was going on, and you can also write about the leader of this Piker Rebellion. So, who were the Paikas? So, the Paikas were the peasant militias of the Gajapati rulers of Odisha. They served the king in the times of the war and they do the cultivation in the times of the peace. So, this Paika rebellion was led by Bakshi Jagbandhu Vidyadhara in 1817, approximately 40 years before 1857 revolt against the British rule. So, this way you can start your introduction. Moving on to the major body part, that what were the actual reasons for the rebellion. So the very first thing is about the British occupation. The British has occupied this Odisha in 1803, overthrowing the Gajapati ruler Mukund Dev II. And we have already discussed in the introduction that these Paikas were the militia, or you can write about that these were the peasant militia under these Gajapati rulers. So when the Britishers overthrew the Odisha rulers or the Gajapati rulers, they took the land from these Paikas also. So there were the crisis of the land holding or due to the new land revenue policies of the Britishers. So this also impacted the Paikas in that particular region. Next is about the denial of territories. So the Britishers, when they conquest the Odisha, they promised that they will return. They did the agreement that they will return the 4 Paraganas also along with Puri Shri Kshetra to the Odisha rulers, but later on they denied in giving the territories. So this was the reason for the Paika rebellion. Next is about they denied the hereditary rights of the land to the Paikas. So the Britishers snatched away the Jagir lands of the Paikas, disrupting their hereditary rights. So these were the issues or the challenges. That is why this Paika rebellion took place. So you can also write about the timeline for the rebellion, that this rise of the revolt was started by the leading by Bakshi Jagbandhu and supported by the tribals and others starting in the March 1817. So what they did actually in the Paika rebellion, they attacked the British symbols of the power, they burned the police stations, administrative offices and the treasury of Britishers. Next is about they put the Britishers initially they have given the setback to the Britishers, but with time the Britishers were the clear winners in this Paika battle. So the Britishers were initially taken aback and then tried to regain lost ground, but still they faced the stiff resistance from these Paikas. They finally defeating the Paikas within the 3 months. And Bakshi Jagbandhu arrested in 1825 and he died in jail itself under the captivity after 4 years of his arrest. Next is about we need to write down about the impact or the outcome of this Paika rebellion. So it has shown that it was an unprecedented rebellion. Till now, the scale of this people's uprising, this was the very first people's uprising at this massive scale, where not only the peasant militia took place, but all over the other sections of the society or other sections of the people also took part in that particular rebellion. And second thing is about this was the very first, or it was the unprecedented revolt at this particular scale. Like previously also something like this happened, but there were majorly the religious uprisings. Like you can quote some examples of the Fakir uprising and the Sannyasi uprising. Next is about the nature of rebellion. This rebellion was unique in its characteristics, like there was the meticulous planning for that. Objectives were very clear. Economic analysis they have done before doing this rebellion. And there was a greater participation from all the categories of the people. And they were having the idea that once we defeat the Britishers, we will put our alternate government, which is indigenous. Okay. Then some rebels fought the guerrilla war. These tactics were later on used in the other revolts also against the British Empire. So it was all people revolt. Various sections of the society took place, not limited to the Paikas. Like you can quote the example that the tribals of the Ghumusar, which is present day Ganjam and the Kandhamal district, and the other sections of the people or the population actively took part in this particular revolt. Okay. So in conclusion, you can write about the significance or you can write about the summary that this Paika withdrawal or the Paika rebellion briefly challenged the Britishers in the eastern part, leaving the transcendental imprint on the Indian history. So you can write the significance in the conclusion. Okay, let's see the model answer. writing about the Paikas in the beginning, then reasons, then timeline and outline, and then finally how this led to the rise of the popular uprising or the impacts of the Paika rebellion, ending with the conclusion. Okay, so this was the discussion from my side for today. Thank you and have a nice day and keep writing.